everyone. Welcome to the 2020 McDonald's Education Online Workshop. 亲爱的观众朋友们，大家好，欢迎各位来到2020年世界日报麦当劳教育博览会的线上直播间。I'm your MC for today. My name is Zhao Zhao Wang. 我是今天的主持人王早早。McDonald's Education Workshop is a very important annual event in our community. And due to the COVID-19, we have to move online for this year. But first and foremost, please allow me to say thank you to McDonald's for your continuing support us through the hard times. And we have to admit that the year of 2020 is full of changes. And thus, today's workshop is utterly important. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave your questions down below in the comment section. We will have a 15 minutes Q&A section at the very end of it. 麦当劳教育博览会呢，是每年都会举办的非常重要的活动。那今年当然受到疫情的影响，我们不得不转到了线上。但是首先呢，我还是想再一次感谢我们的冠名赞助商麦当劳对于我们活动多年以来的支持。麦当劳教育博览会旨在为我们华裔的家长和学生提供最新鲜的教育资讯。今天呢，我们也为大家请到了最为权威的教育专家，为大家来详细的解答，在疫情的影响之下，我们的教育政策和学校等各个方面到底有了什么样的转变。那如果您有一些问题的话呢，请您在下面的留言栏把您的问题打出来。我们线上的工作人员呢，将会将这些问题整理出来，挑出其中最为精华的，在最后15分钟的问答环节当中，邀请我们的专家来为您一一的解答。Besides the informative lectures, we also have the Sweepstakes today. Now we've prepared 2 AirPods, 1 iPad, and 100 McDonald's cash cards. So here's how it works, all right? When you register for this very event on the Eventbrite on the website, you should have received an email confirmation. And there's an order number in there, and that's the ticket number for today. 好，为大家解释一下，我们的抽奖环节呢是这样来进行的。当您注册我们本次线上教育博览会的时候呢，您应该已经收到了一封来自于 Eventbrite 这个网站的确认邮件。在这当中呢，应该有一个叫做 Order Number， 也就是您的订单确认号码，而这个号码就是我们今天要抽奖的抽奖号码了。So later on, I'll draw like tickets from the box. And if you hear your own number, the order number, please call us on the number that's shown on the screen. And if you can call it within 10 minutes, the prize is yours. If it's more than 10 minutes, I'm sorry, we have to draw again. 那如果说等一会儿您听到我念到您的订单号码，请您赶快拿出手机拨打我们的专线电话，而且呢必须注意要在10分钟之内拨打，超过10分钟呢，我们将不得不视作弃权，重新抽取了。All right, without further ado, let's meet our 4 lecturers for today. 那么接下来呢，让我们一起来认识一下我们今天的4位发言嘉宾。The first lecturer for today, New York State Senator, the chairman of New York City Education Committee, Mr. John Liu. 纽约市教育委员会主席刘纯义先生。Lecturer number 2, President and Chief Consultant of GPS Academy and 领航 International School, Mr. Lawrence Yan. 领航教育的校长以及升学总顾问严千叶先生。Lecturer number 3, an experienced teacher who taught at the Thompson Harrison High School for 15 years, Mr. Peter Wompstacker. 曾在明星高中任教15年的老师 Peter Wompstacker 先生。Lecturer number 4, admission interviewer at Yale for 8 years, the president of American Education Experts, Miss Anna Bogiel. 前耶鲁的面试官，同时呢也是美国教育专家团的主席 Anna Bogiel 女士。All right, without further ado, let's welcome our Deputy Managing Director of World Journal, Mr. 魏必洲。接下来呢，我们就要进入今天的第一个环节了，让我们掌声有请我们《世界日报》的副总编辑魏必洲先生，有请。
Thank you, everyone. Welcome everybody to participate today's McDonald's online education forums and workshops. And this is a wonderful opportunity and very important gathering for today's. As we understand the whole situation right now, first of all, I want to, on behalf of the World Journal, thank you every speakers who participate today's forums, and also every guests and participant and the parents for this online education forums. What are we doing today right now is we are facing a very unprofound challenges presented by the COVID-19. We understand this is a very, very important and very essential task in front of us. And this is an uncharted path. Especially as Asian Americans community, we are emphasizing the education part of our life. And this is an ongoing, never-ending life, which is being challenged by this COVID-19 present our each unexpected challenge though. As far as the education side, New York City has the largest public education system in the nation. Every aspect of the education policy and his implementation has tremendous impacts on not only the New York City, New York States, as far as the influence goes, and whole nations. And today we're facing this part of a challenge that is online education. We understand we don't know how the future will be. However, we are dealing this with in the day-to-day basis. We understand this coming semester will be online education will be an integral part of the whole education process. And no other person has more experience and more influential in terms of formulating the whole online education policy than our opening speakers, Mr. John Liu. I'm honored to introduce Mr. John Liu. He is the first Asian American City Council of New York City, and he also is the first citywide hold offices, city controllers of New York City. Now he is the state senator of New York State, and he chairs on the State Committee on Education of New York City, which is very important roles in terms of, as I said, formulating the online education and every aspects of the education policy in terms of the public education. So without further ado, we want to ask, have Mr. Liu to shed light on how the current legislative process in terms of the COVID-19 will affect us. Now, we have the opportunity to present you Ms. Honorable State Senator, Mr. John Liu.
Hi, Joe. Thank you so much for the very kind introduction, and I am so proud to be part of this very special event. I want to thank World Journal for putting this annual conference on for our students and our families in the community. It's actually a long sought after and anticipated event every single year. And of course, we thank McDonald's and the sponsors for making this event possible. I know lots of students and families who are very concerned about education and schools. And in fact, those are always the highest priority in our community, which is why it's always been the biggest reason why I ran for office, whether it be for city council or state senate. And being that education is our personal highest priority, we have to understand what's happening here. 2020 is a year that we will never forget, from the coronavirus that has stricken the human race worldwide, and of course here in New York in the United States, to the second virus, which is the racist and discriminatory virus that Asian Americans in particular have faced, especially when people like the president continue to call COVID-19 the Chinese virus. These are things that have affected our community very, very deeply. And of course, in the past couple of months, the nationwide social change that's spearheaded by Black Lives Matter, these monumental changes that we will feel the impacts of for a very, very long time. On the question of how COVID-19 has affected our school system, it's affected everybody in the entire country. And now many of the states outside New York and New Jersey and the tri-state area are facing a heavier impact from coronavirus. In New York and the tri-state area, things are not as bad as they were a few months ago. But our school system is still reeling from the impacts. In March, in New York State, we closed schools to in-person learning and went to remote learning. That introduced huge numbers of challenges, both for families who did not have the devices or did not have enough devices, where the families had more than one child in school, to the lack of access to good Wi-Fi and broadband. Whether families were able to afford the service, or even if they afforded the service, but the Wi-Fi was just very weak at home. And I'll be the first to admit, there's a significant likelihood that sometime in the next 2 hours, my Wi-Fi will also go down. I hope it doesn't go down anytime soon. And then, of course, remote learning has included not only the equipment and the signal, but also whether students are able to learn remotely. Some of our students on IEPs, which are students with special needs, it is almost impossible for them to learn remotely. And then finally, the teachers, they were thrust into this situation. Teachers really did not have any kind of training for online teaching. I teach myself, and I will tell you my personal experience is going from a live classroom setting to immediately and suddenly to remote learning by computer and camera and seeing your students in these different boxes. It's a very different experience, and teachers have also had to catch up. We do need to provide them with better training so that they can in turn teach their students. So we now have been through 3.5 months of remote learning in New York. The summer school is clearly not to the level where people expected to be. And now there are big questions about September and whether schools can in fact open for in-person learning. And even if they do open for in-person learning, there's no question that there will be the staggered schedules. It cannot be the regular schedule because schools in New York are already overcrowded as they are. And so add to that overcrowding the need to have social distancing within classrooms, it requires that we either change the daily schedule. Some have suggested having some students go to class in the morning and other students going to class in the afternoon and evenings, or maybe going to school every other day or every third day, with the remaining days learning through remote methods. So there are still, I am shocked that the Department of Education still does not have a clear plan. 6 weeks to go. I and my committee members in the Senate, we continue to press both the state education department as well as the New York Department of Education to get the plans underway. I think part of the problem is that everybody has a different opinion. And my office is continuously flooded with questions as well as comments, suggestions, and complaints. And people have different opinions about how much remote learning should there be, how often and how much the schools should be reopened, and what kind of distance learning there should be. And I've said to the chancellor that there's no way you can make everybody happy. It is important just to simply decide on what the policy is so that parents and students can plan for the coming semester. And parents have it difficult as well because most parents have to work. They have to make a living. They have to feed the family. And when the child or the children are not able to go to school, it poses enormous challenges for the parents in New York and I'm sure elsewhere. So we have many issues, many problems, that we're still grappling with. And even after we're able to find some kind of solution for the fall term, I believe that what we have experienced these last several months, there are also some good things that we can take indefinitely into the future. This remote learning, it certainly has not worked perfectly. It doesn't work well for many students, but there are also some students that actually have thrived with a remote learning system. And so going forward, next year and years after that, I believe that we can add to our in-person learning some aspect of remote. I'm sorry about that, to supplement the regular classroom learning and teaching that goes on in our public schools. So there are many issues that still have to be resolved, but our schools are obviously the most important part of not only our society, but actually the economy as well. We all understand how big an economic impact COVID-19 has had on the United States and throughout the world. And as there's effort to reopen the economy, there's a very real realization that the economy completely reopen if the schools do not reopen. And so we're talking about not only health policy and not only education policy, but overall economic policy as well. The economic policy is something that we cannot ignore, because even with the challenges in school, we also have funding challenges. The state of New York is faced with a $15 billion deficit. That is not because of overspending due to COVID or anything else. It is simply because of a shortfall in expected revenues. Businesses have shut down, so sales tax receipts are far off. Lots of people have been going to work or have even lost their jobs, so income tax collections are off. And then, unfortunately, there are lots of people who are not able to even pay their monthly rent. And so ultimately, that's going to affect property collections. So city and state tax revenues are substantially far off. I just came back from Albany on Thursday, where we passed a number of bills, and we expect to go back sometime in August after Washington, D.C. Congress passes what is expected to be the next round of stimulus funding for the country. We are very much hoping that there will be some state and local government assistance in that federal package, and much of that federal assistance would actually go to schools. We have talked about the need for that. Governor Cuomo has been very clear that if that federal funding does not come through, and not adding all the challenges that we have with remote learning and reopening schools, maybe up to a 20% reduction in the statewide school budget. That is, we're talking about, as much as $5 billion. That would be really significant dismantling of our school system. So we have that to deal with as well, the economic impact of COVID-19 on how state and local governments, meaning New York State and New York City funding, is available, especially for schools. Schools are the biggest responsibility of state and local government, and therefore our public education system takes by far the highest percentage of the state budget, the New York City budget. So there are so many challenges that we're faced with: health challenges, education challenges, fiscal and economic challenges. But that is why it's so important to have this kind of discussion taking place. I know World Journal has convened a large number of families online, and I look forward to hearing from my fellow panelists and also taking the questions that there may be. I encourage families, students, and parents to ask the questions during the Q&A period. And if for some reason, I doubt they'll be able to get to all the questions, if you have a question or suggestion, please contact me directly in my Senate office. My email address is liu, @nysenate.gov. Thanks so much. thank you, Joe, for that kind introduction. And thank you to World Journal for being all of us. I look forward to hearing from my fellow panelists.
Thank you, Senator John. Thank you so much for this very insightful information, particularly on the your knowledge acquires from the your cities. May I just, before we have our panel question, can I ask you a question with regard to what you just mentioned, though? Am I can conclude that right now we don't have still, as far as the city goes, we don't have proper plans in terms of how do we opening our coming fall semester, September. And we understand that the CDC just released the guidelines regarding the school opening and all of the regulations and the points in there. But you also mentioned that we are waiting for the next stimulus package from the federal, from the Congress. Are you saying that we are right now we don't have a formulated final opening plan from the city point of view? Is it because we are waiting and formulating the resource we have from the federal so that we can put together integral part of the opening plans? And my next question, how do you advise our parents right now? Because without the opening plans and guidelines, then we don't know how much in-person school times and the remote learning times will be allocated so the family can allocate their working times and the in-home times with their children.
Thank you, Joe, for that question. And that's a very good question. I know people have lots on their mind about it. The funding question, I do not believe is as significant from the point of view of parents and families with regard to school. We hope that the federal government will provide that state and local government assistance. Again, not because we overspent any money, but because tax revenues are so far off. If the government does not provide that stimulus package, stimulus funding for state governments, then we will have to make it up on our own. And I am not going to be a state senator that allows any schools to close because of impact. So there are a number of measures that we've already been working on this summer in Albany, in the state legislature, to make up for the lost revenues. Again, we hope that Washington provides that funding. If they do not, there are a number of tax revenues that we will have to enact. And I believe we have to enact them because it's far better. Nobody likes taxes, but we can't let schools close because they just don't have enough. So the funding aspect does not affect the reopening of the schools as much. But the reality is that there is no clear plan, even as of today, about what the school reopening will look like. The mayor of New York City, de Blasio, he has put out some suggestions. Some suggestions are mostly alternating days so that the students can be social distanced within the schools. Again, the schools, there's no extra space in the schools, so they're full. The only way to social distance is if not all the students go to school every single day. So it could be 1 out of every 2 days, or in some cases where the overcrowding is especially bad, 1 out of every 3 days, meaning 1 day go to school and 2 days have to do remote learning from home because we have to keep the school students apart. That is the main suggestion, but that's not even a clear plan yet because unfortunately, we're getting some mixed signals from different parts of government. Soon after Mayor de Blasio announced his suggested plan, Governor Cuomo insisted that we don't know yet if the schools can even reopen. It's going to depend on the infection rates in particular areas, for example, in New York City, and the hospitalization rates and what kind of testing is available, how widespread that testing is. And, at some point, the availability of vaccines, although we may still be many, many months away from that point. So the governor insists that we won't know until the first week of August when we'll have a better idea when schools can open in the first week of September. And then, of course, we have the president and the Federal Centers for Disease Control. They have another set of opinions about under what circumstances schools in the United States should reopen. So there is definitely a lack of clear guidance. And this is what I was talking before, that it's important for both the state education commission as well as the New York City Schools Chancellor just to announce what the policy is. Not everybody will be happy, but at least give parents and families a clear idea of what is going to happen come September, because it's planning for school, it's planning for learning, but it's also planning for parents going to work and providing care for their children as well.
Thank you so much. May I just briefly in Chinese for our readers. And based on what you're talking about, you mentioned, first of all, I get the impression is that there's no clear plans from the top to the local, from the federal to the city. First of all, then second thing is as far as the New York City goes, we will probably clear pictures on the first weeks of August, so that we can work on there as possible. And then maybe we have a more clear plan by the end of the August. And second, there's probably we're going to have a mix in-person and remote learning as a part of a future semester education plans goes. And that's pretty much the things I'm gathering. And also how the reopening will depend on, which was mentioned, the infection rates, hospitalizations, all kind of elements in this. And so this is the message. So far, you can, from the legislative point of view, you can convey to our readers. Am I correct on that one? Just make sure that's yes. Thank you. Now, Senator, we have another question for our readers. Most of the parents, especially from the Asian American community, I think the children's safety is so important to them. So many schools, they want, or in the parent too, they wanted to have 100% remote learning. If that's the wish from the community, what's the way you can help them to achieve that goal?
Well, this is exactly what some of the difficulty is. Everybody has a different opinion about how safe the schools will be, whether the schools will be safe even for any limited in-person attendance, or whether the education should continue just by remote learning. If you ask different parents, they will all have different opinions. The pediatricians, the American Pediatrician Association, recently came out with a strong opinion that it will be very harmful to kids if schools do not reopen for in-person learning in September. So the doctors have also a different opinion, not just from a COVID point of view, but also from an educational point of view, psychological and social impact point of view. So, there's like the economic dimension, there's the health dimension, there's the educational dimension, and there's also kind of like an overall, I guess, a mental health perspective as well. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. My best guess at this point is that schools will reopen in September. They will not be reopened where students will go to school every single day. They will probably go to school every other day, or maybe 2 days out of 5 days of the week in some areas where the schools are especially overcrowded. And even then, there will be different ways to deliver the content material, the educational material, and that remains to be seen. But my suggestion to, again, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know exactly where this country is going to be 1 month from now with the coronavirus, if we're going to be hit with a really bad wave in the New York and tri-state area. But as things stand right now, I think that schools will be open, at least they will be open, but with social distancing, kids will not be going to school every single day. They will be attending school, meaning by remote or by in person, but they will not be able to go to school in person every single day. But I don't think it will be 100% remote learning.
Thank you so much, Senator Jiang. This is very important. Thank you for your insights and valuable information as far as where we stand right now in terms of the remote learning and the whole reopening policy. Thank you so much. We don't have enough time for the more question. I believe more you will receive from our readers, more questions direct to your offices in terms of seeking the more clear guidelines. 谢谢大家，我们谢谢这个今天刘议员、周参议员给我们讲的这一些比较重要，让我们了解目前这个学校重开，还有这个线上教学这方面，目前我们所处的这个位置是什么样？显然，在未来的1个月啊，请大家还是要关注这个整个发展。我想，那个世界日报还有世界新闻网的网站都会在这个方面最及时的提供大家最新最这个 up to date 的这有关于教育方面的这个讯息。那么也谢谢今天这个 McDonald's 这个提供的这个线上教育座谈会，让大家有这个机会了解，特别是从刘议员这方面了解到我们目前所处的这个整个立法的也好，或者是政策形成的位置也好，就如刚刚刘议员所说的大家先可能还要暂时再耐心等一段，大概1个月的时间，这个比较清楚的这个画面才会出来。那么这样子的话，我们会做进一步的报道。谢谢刘议员的宝贵时间，给我们这样子的这个机会，还有这么多的这个宝贵经验。那么也谢谢今天让我先说一遍，谢谢今天世界日报新闻网站在这边这个大家团队所准备出来的节目那么还有这个下面呢就会是更精彩、更比较扎实的这个干货都出来了。希望大家好好的这个利用，好好的这个能够了解这整个过程是什么。谢谢大家。我现在把这个主持的这个麦交还给我们这个王小姐。Now I turn my mic. I want to thank you again, Senator Jiang Liu, for the insightful and timely information regarding the reopening and the school and the remote learning. And I also want to extend our gratitude to the worldjournal.com digital teamwork that put everything together. Now I turn my mic to lovely and talented Ms. Hong. What?
All right,
thank you.
Thank you. 谢谢两位。Thank you, Mr. Liu, and thank you, Mr. Wei. Thank you so much for the informative, the speech and the Q&A sections. And again, we would like to invite all the audience. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave your questions down below in the comments section, and we will have a 15 minutes Q&A section at the very end. 好，那我们再一次呢，邀请我们今天的各位嘉宾朋友们，如果说我们的观众朋友们如果说您有任何的问题，请不要着急，留言在我们下方的留言区域。在所有的讲师演讲完毕之后呢，我们有专门的问答环节，有15分钟的时间，我们会挑选出其中最精华的留言和问题给大家提问。All right, now let's welcome our second lecturer, Mr. Lawrence Yan. 接下来呢，要为大家介绍的就是我们今天的第2位讲师了，也是我们常驻的嘉宾严千叶校长。To introduce him a little bit, he's the president and the chief consultant of GPS Academy and Linhang International School. He's going to tell you about the updated trends in applying for college under the COVID-19 situation. 那么今天呢，我们的第2位演讲嘉宾严千叶校长，他是领航教育的校长以及升学的总顾问。那么他是一位美籍华人，毕业于哈佛大学。最重要的是，他是美国教育部认证 IECA 独立教育顾问资深成员。他将要给大家演讲的主题是疫情之下申请大学的最新的趋势和潮流。那首先我们先跟他打个招呼。First, let's say hi to him. Hi, Mr. Lawrence Yan.
Hi, everyone.
All right. Perfect. The stage is yours. The screen is yours.
Great. Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Lawrence Yan from GPS Academy, Linhang 教育. First of all, I want to thank McDonald's for hosting the event, and it is my honor to share with all of you my perspective on college admission during such difficult time. Today's agenda involves general application trend under COVID-19, tips for parents, as well as recommendation for students who are applying this fall. I'll be speaking in Chinese and my presentation will be written in English. So if there's any confusion, feel free to ask questions during the Q&A session. 大家好，我是领航国际教育的总顾问严千叶。首先非常荣幸能够这个麦当劳能够一如既往的支持我们华人的教育，同时非常荣幸能够再一次参加世界日报的讲座。这次和大家分享的主题主要是在疫情期间的申请趋势，给家长一些申请方面的一些建议，以及就是马上要申请的这批孩子的一些推荐。Okay, let's move on. 第一个主题就是今年因为是疫情的关系，有哪一些趋势是大家需要了解和知道的。Okay, next slide. 好的，首先大家需要注意的是，今年的整体的一个情况就是说，所有的活动线下的活动其实都被取消了，包括就是学校的俱乐部啊，或者是说课外的活动，然后很多的这种下校 summer program 其实都是要么就线上，要么就是完全被取消了。所以其实大家的话呢，都没有太多的这个11年级有太多的这个活动，所以呢这边不用太担心，就是说如果您的孩子他们的11年级的很多的活动中断了，就无法比如说能够 show 这个 consistency。其实是没有什么太大的问题的，其实大学都是非常的了解的，所以呢，但是等会儿也会讲到有哪些东西学生是可以做的啊。第二个部分就是这些考试的部分其实都被取消。我们知道3月份开始，其实像 SAT、SAT2、ACT 这些完全是被取消了，所以呢，今年的趋势，我个人认为，今年秋天的很多的 SAT 考试的话，也是会被取消。所以今年整体的趋势就是说，如果你孩子的这个学校的成绩和他的 SAT 不是很符合的情况下，或者说他没有去考的情况下，很多的学生会只递交他的成绩和推荐信，还有他的活动，他不会再去递交他的 SAT 的成绩或者是 ACT。我举个例子好了，比如说学生如果是在Stuyvesant High School 对吧 Stuyvesant， 然后呢他的学校的这个成绩是95分。那我们知道，大概比如说对于招生官来讲，95分，大部分学生应该会拿到差不多1530分左右的 SAT。那这个时候的话，如果你孩子的 SAT 比如说是1400的话，那么其实可以考虑就是不递交你的这个 SAT 的成绩，然后只这个学校的成绩加上其他的一些活动还有文书来就是递交给大学。对，那么这个部分的话，就是关于我们刚才也讲到了，活动的部分会出现大量的一个断层，就是11年级没有活动。还有呢，第二个部分就是 SAT 的部分可能会就是说选择性递交是可以的。那第三个部分的话呢，对今年的趋势就是说，大家会更关注于这个奖助学金的部分，因为我们知道很多的家庭其实在这个收入方面都遇到了很大的一个问题。那么在申请大学的时候，比如说今年要申请的这批孩子，其实要递交的是2019年的税表，那个时候疫情还没有到来，所以其实很难去正确的反映就是家庭目前的这样的一个经济的状况。所以呢，这个也是今年大家非常关心的一个主题。我在后面也会就是在这个部分可能会讲的更多一点点。然后第四个部分也是一个最新的一个趋势，就是说我们无法再去学校参观，那么特别是一些学生要走 ED 或者是 EA 或者是 REA 的学校，那就无法去就是说身临其境的去体验一下这个学校的氛围啊，还有它的一些 resource。所以呢，今年的趋势是很多的学生都开始看这个 virtual tour， 就是每个学校的这个线上的，通过 YouTube 上面可以看他们的这个线上的这个就是校访，就是学校的参访。OK， next slide please。OK， 好，那下面讲一下，就是说给家长的 一些推荐和建议。OK，next slide。好，总共的话分为4个部分，其实是这个部分是给家长的。第一个部分刚才也说过了，就是 SAT、ACT 还有这个 SAT2的话，大部分的学校，包括 MIT 已经是这个变成选择性递交了。但是选择性递交并不表示就可以不递交。如果比如说你的孩子如果 SAT 已经出分的情况下，那么还是递交会比较好的。唯一的一种情况就是说学生的成绩可能和他的 GPA 不符的情况下，那么在这种情况下，我会建议就是说可以选择不递交他的 SAT。所以呢，如果暑期还是有时间的话，这个准备这个 SAT、ACT 还是非常的重要的。OK， 然后第二个部分就是说给家长的一个建议和推荐，就是在这个奖助学金的部分，不单单家长的荷包可能会缩水，其实很多学校的部分，很多学校的财政也会面临到很大的这个挑战和问题。因为今年的入学的很多学生其实已经选择 gap year 或者是gap semester， 那么大学其实大部分的这个经济来源是来自于学校的学生的学费。那么如果这一批学生他就是说不读的，或就是说没有再读的话，其实学校是拿不到这一批学费的啊。那这种情况下的话，就会间接的影响到下一届的学生申请的话，他们的这个 financial aid package， 就是他们的这个奖助学金能拿到的钱可能会大大的减少。所以呢，家长和学生一定要讨论好，我有没有能力去支付这个学校如果他给了我比如说那个提早申请的这个 offer early decision 的这个 acceptance letter， 对吧？我没有能力去支付，那么如果没有能力支付的话呢，我是需要怎么样去做？那一般情况下的话呢，就是说学生是，如果你的家庭比如说收入是在10几万，那么其实你没有太大的理由，就是说我是付不出这笔钱。但是如果家长的收入在比如说6万以下的话呢，那么你在申请这个奖助学金没有拿到你的这个额度的时候，其实是可以就是说它当然是有一些方法能够跳出这个异地，但我不是特别推荐所有人都这样操作但是往年也是有很多的案子，就是说是可以这样子操作的。比如说我们其实今年有学生进了这个在 EA 的阶段进了非常好的学校，然后呢他这个异地的话呢，就是说付不出来那么多钱，因为异地的学校给的不是很多，他也是后期也是顺利的跳出来了。但是这种情况下的话，不是特别的推荐，所以呢，家长一定要做好自己的在填写这个 status profile 和 FAFSA 的时候，一定要特别的小心，就是把自己的内容要很详细的填进去，不能就是说随便让孩子自己去填。OK， 这是第二个给家长的这个建议。那么 CSS Profile 的话是在10月1号开通的，但是其实所有的这个内容跟往年差不多的，所以呢其实是可以提早的这个去做一个准备。然后这边要非常这个重要的一个事情要提醒所有的家长的，就是说 Financial Aid 它的截止日期和学生申请大学的截止日期是一样的。你不能说我等到我的录取结果出来以后，我再去申请奖学金、助学金，那你是拿不到1分钱的。所以这边非常非常推荐家长，就是说能够提早的开始准备这个 CSS Profile 还有 FAFSA 的这样的一个申请的流程。OK， 第3个部分想要这个推荐就是家长去马上开始操作，就是说这个申请季啊。其实已经开始了，不是等到开学以后。其实大部分的学生，我在这么多年的申请的经历上来看，我觉得申请的最好的一批学生，都是在暑假很早就开始写文书，在准备他的所有的 Common App 的资料的这批学生，往往都会升得更好一点。所以呢，如果你的孩子现在还没有开始准备的话，那请你一定要提醒你的孩子，就是说已经开始了，这个申请季已经开始了 OK， 因为所有的像 Common App 的话，它是在后期是可以自动的更新的，它所有的内容基本上是不变的，可能会有10%的文书在后期会有一个这个变化，但是呢，这个不是你从比 比如说8月1号或者是9月1号开始的一个理由。所以呢，非常的推荐家长能够马上提醒你的孩子，如果现在还没有开始准备你的主文书还有你的一些活动列表，这个时候要马上开始。 OK， 那最后一个部分我想家长推荐的就是说，虽然很多的这个活动就是线下的活动已经被取消了，但是其实是有非常非常多的线上的活动，包括线上的义工，包括很多的这个自学的平台，比如说这个可能不一定说是12年级申请大学的学生，比如说像一些计算机奥林匹克啊，或者是说像有很多这种 AMC 的知识啊，还有就比如说有很多这种义工的机会，其实学生都是可以在网上找到的啊。那么这个部分的话，如果有更多的问题的话，或者需要有更多的资源的部分，可以之后联系我们，之后我也会提供我的这个联系方式。OK， 对，所以呢，只要能够做到这一些部分的话，其实学生申请大学就有一个非常好的一个准备。还有最后一个部分，就是你们一定要尽早的去讨论这一些这个学校的名单，然后呢，可以做出一个更客观的这样的一个分析和决定。OK， 好 ，Next slide。这个给学生的一些推荐 recommendation for students。好，首先第一个想要讲的就是说 do research on your school right away， 现在就应该去开始做你所有学校的一个研究啊，比如说通过一些线上的一些 website， 比如说 College Confidential， 比如说像可以买那个 FISGuide， 这些其实都对学生了解这个学校有更好的一个帮助，因为大部分的学校是要问你为什么要申请我们的，对吧？你如果对这个学校一点都不了解，那么你就无法去做一个很有说服力的这样的一个解释啊。第二个部分想要推荐学生去做的就是马上开始写你的文书。这个部分的话，其实也刚才在跟家长的部分也讲到。那我这边想要额外提到的一个部分就是说，你尽早写文书的一个好处是，你可以把你的主文书或者是你的这种 Supplemental Essay， 你可以分享给你的同学、你的老师。如果他们觉得你的这个主题不是说特别的有吸引力，你还可以提早的做一个调整。可能我们有一个学生今年是进普林斯顿、哈佛、耶鲁，还有这个麻省理工，他的主文书就有7个不同的版本，然后我们才决定找一个最适合他的作为他的这个主文书，然后再开始往后面去修改。所以其实这个主文书的东西的话，就是说你可能自己觉得写得很好，但是呢，如果大家别人觉得这个东西不是很好的话，你可能要做一些调整啊。所以呢，这边的话就是希望学生能够马上开始写他的这个主文书，然后能够让更多的人去给你做一个比较客观的一个判断分析。OK， 第3个部分也是我给学生的一个建议，就是说我们知道很多的小文书就是 Supplemental Essay， 其实要等到8月1号才会更新，但是没有关系，你可以做的一个部分是，你们就开始先从加州系统的这个文书开始写。加州系统的文书的话，虽然很多的我们美东的孩子可能不申请加州学校，但是加州系统的文书非常好的点在于，它总共有8篇文章 ，OK， 每一篇是350个字。那第1篇讲的是关于领导力的事情，第2篇讲的是你的创意，就是跟你的 creativity 相关的，第3篇讲的是你的一个特殊的才能，比如说你很会这个自学，或者是说你很会弹这个小提琴，就是说可以把你的很多的应该要写的元素都能够写出来。然后你可以就是你后面在写这个其他的文书的时候，就很容易的就可以，我们叫 plug in， 对吧？就是可以放进去。然后呢，有些时候，比如说你的主文书一下子想不出来的话，你还可以先把这个加州文书的学校写完之后，从其中的5到6篇，再去找出1篇你觉得写的最好的，然后把它升级成为这个主文书的这个主题。然后呢，最后一个想要给学生推荐的这个事情，就是说不要认为疫情来了我们就什么都不可以做。其实有很多的人，这个其实是最好的一个机会，就是当别人都在这个觉得疫情 什么都做不了的时候，如果你可以很积极的 you take the initiative， 然后你做很多的这种很正面的，比如说帮助到你的社区，或者是说像我们有学生成为这个线上的这个创意写作的作家，或者是说做这个开一个科学杂志写一个科学杂志，或者是说参加很多的这种线上的义工，或者是说帮助我们都有学生在和纽约大学的教授一起在就是教中文，教一些成人就是说如何讲好中文。其实有很多很多的事情学生是做的，我们还有很多学生自己在创业，对吧？他有很多自己的创业的网站啊什么的。其实这些东西就是你跟别人的差距。当别人都在就很悲观的在被动的在接受这个事实的时候，你在很主动的迎击这一场疫情，然后能够做出很多别人做不到的事情。我觉得这个是你跟别人为什么你会被录取，别人不会被录取的最大的一个因素。不要给自己借口，认为现在是疫情，你应该是很正面的去对我们的社区，对你自己的兴趣能够做一个更好的一个升级和提升。那这边就是我所有要讲的主题，谢谢大家 ，Thank you very much。
太好了，谢谢。Thank you so much. This is so detailed and very helpful. You said it right. You got to adapt, right? You got to take the initiative. Don't just sit there and complain. 我们觉得严校长说的非常的好哈，虽然有疫情，但是呢，与其在家里抱怨，不如主动出击，做一些准备，说不定名校录取的那个就是你了。好的，那我们一会儿呢，在我们的 Q&A section, we'll see you again. Thank you. 好，一会儿在我们的问答环节呢，还将请回我们的严校长，为我们大家解答一些精品问题。接下来这个环节呢，就是大家还蛮期待的哈，我们的抽奖环节了。Now is the time for the Sweepstakes. 好，那 please grab your email, find that order number. 大家赶快调出自己的这个邮件哈，找到你的 number。我们要抽取的呢是 AirPods。Please bring it up on the screen， 让大家看一看哈，我们的这个 AirPods 到底长成什么样？应该都很熟了，非常想要的。I'm sure that's something you want to win. 好 ，Now I'm going to put my hand in. I'm going to grab two, make sure it's fair. 1 and 2. 好，那接下来呢，我要为大家公布号码。Now I will announce the number. All right. Okay.I'm so excited for you. 好激动。好，第一个叫做13996643721 13996643722. If that's your number, please call us. All right, let's go. Number 2, 139362722 139362722. All right, I'll read that in English again. 13996643722. The second one is 139362722. All right, please call us right away. 现在呢，您要马上拨打我们的专线电话，在屏幕上呢也已经给大家显示出来了。电话号码是718-746-8889，分机号6213。So please call us right away at 718-746-8889, and the extension is 6213. 好 you only have 10 minutes. 只有10分钟的时间 Alright, if you don't call us within the next 10 minutes, I'm sorry, I'm gonna draw it again. 如果说在接下来的10分钟之内，您没有打进我们的专线电话的话，不好意思，我要再抽取下一张了。So when you call it in, you will reach our colleagues, and they're just going to verify your basic information with you, and the prize is yours. 好，您打进电话以后呢，我们的同事将会与您确认您的基本个人信息，之后呢，您就会获得这份大奖了。好，我们在紧张的等待着电话的拨入。All right. Hopefully, we'll get the winner soon. 好，那么如果这一次没有抽到也没有关系，我们后面还有大奖。If you didn't really hear a number or see the number on the screen, it's okay. There's bigger prize later. 我们还有 iPad， 还有100张的麦当劳的现金券要为大家送出的，稍安勿躁，没有关系。So if your number haven't been called yet, don't worry. We have iPad and 100 McDonald's cash card waiting for you. All right. 好，那么 moving on, we're going to have Mr. Peter Wompstacker. 好，那么接下来要请上的是我们的第3位发言嘉宾了，是 Peter Wompstacker 先生。那为大家介绍一下 ，He's going to talk about the importance of the college essay to the application process. He's an experienced teacher from the Thompson Harrison High School who have been teaching there for 15 years, and he helped many students to get into their dream schools. 我们请到的这位呢，是在明星高中任教了长达15年的名师，他帮助了很多学生进入了自己梦想当中的名校，希望今天他也可以帮到您。All right, let's say hi to him first. Hi, Mr. Peter Wompstacker, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Take over.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you to the World Journal and McDonald's for making this event happen. Thank you for that introduction. Again, my name is Peter, and I am a teacher of English language arts in New York City, but I'm also the senior college admissions consultant at Ivy Road Prep in Flushing, Queens. Bi Sun Chao Yu. At Ivy Road Prep, we help our students succeed in getting into college, the college of their choice, including the Ivy Leagues and the top 50 universities and colleges in the United States. Today, I'm going to speak to you about the importance of the college application essay. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is that there are many things that colleges and universities look at before they make an offer of admission. In addition to student grades, SAT scores, and extracurricular activities, colleges are also going to look at your college application essay. Now, this is sometimes referred to as the personal essay, and the word personal is important to distinguish it from other essays you may be asked to write. It is the one opportunity, aside from a personal interview, if you are given a personal interview, where you can let the admissions committee know who you are on a personal level. All right, let's go to slide 2. So one of the things that you should know about is that when you write about what you will write about in your college application essay is going to depend on what the essay prompt is that the college provides. So you may be given a topic, or you may have to come up with one of your own, all right? They may give you, for instance, 3 topics and ask you to write about one of them from your own personal point of view. And so what you should do is choose a topic that you are familiar with. Even if the topic that they give you sounds good, if you don't really care about that topic, it's something that you may want to avoid because it makes it much more difficult to actually write that essay. Most often, though, the colleges are going to ask you why you want to attend their school and what you would be able to contribute to the school and to fellow students. You must remember that you're going to be a part of a community, and a new community at that. And the idea is that you share your own personal experiences growing up with the college admissions committees so that they know what you can contribute, what you have to offer to the school. And each of you has something of value. What you need to do is locate or identify what it is that's most valuable about that and make that the focus of your essay. The third type of essay, and sometimes colleges will ask some kind of creative, they'll give you a creative kind of prompt. I had a student a few years back who applied to Stanford University in California, and they were asked to select one person from history or literature that they would like to have dinner with, and of course, what they might talk about during that dinner conversation. So this one student that I had chose to meet with and talk about the Renaissance politician and writer Niccolo Machiavelli, who's most famous for having written the book The Prince. And one of the nice ideas, one of the nice things about choosing that particular topic is that it not only revealed the students' interest and knowledge about an important work of literature, but it also revealed something of their creative side as well. The important thing to realize here is that no matter what topic you choose to write about, please make sure that it's narrowly focused. Although your essay is going to be personal, it is not necessary to tell your whole life story from birth to present. Instead, what I advise, and most people, most college admissions officers appreciate this, is that you choose one event in your life that was most meaningful to you. All right, if you can choose that one event that was most meaningful to you in your life, it'll help bring focus to your essay and it'll make it much easier, in fact, to write. So interesting essays, I'll talk a little bit about this. Interesting essays usually focus on an event that changed the way that you think and behave, all right? Students are in constant development from the time that they first enter school and even through their college years. But high school is in particularly a time of growth. Freshmen are never going to be the same person in any way, shape, or form, both physically and emotionally, by the time that they become seniors. But high school is an exciting time because there are a lot of opportunities in which you will be thrown into an experience that you may never have had before, and you're then going to be asked perhaps to solve a problem. And that's another topic that you, if you're not assigned a topic, that you could actually choose. Winning essays tend to focus on a problem that the student had in his or her life, and then talks about how they attempted to solve that problem. What should come out in those essays is what you, as the student who's writing the essay, think about that topic, but just as importantly, what you feel about that topic. Because both your thoughts and your feelings will bring together a complete picture of who you are, and it's going to give the colleges an opportunity to see you as an individual, as a person, and as a distinct person from all of the other students that are applying to school. If we could turn to slide 3. Once you finally know what you want to write about, you should think about that topic very, very carefully. So do not wait until the last minute or even the night before to write your college application. Instead, what I would recommend is that as soon as you begin the process of applying to college, you should also begin the process of writing your essay. Believe me, taking your time to write a very good essay and doing it early on will take a lot of pressure off of you. It will also give you opportunities to make changes along the way that will help improve your essay. So once you finally decide on a topic, and there are several good topics to choose, you should begin outlining your ideas on paper. Now, many students make the mistake of thinking that they need to begin writing right away. As an English teacher, I always encourage my students to begin with an outline, which means that you introduce the topic and you begin to make a list of things that you want to say in response to that topic. Believe me, it makes your life a lot easier when you're able to break out your ideas in small steps, all right? Once you take the time to do that, when it comes time to actually writing complete sentences, you will find it's very easy to do. So I encourage students to think carefully about the topic and to begin writing using an outline. All right, if we could go to, let's see here. Let's go to slide number 4, all right? Now, if you've chosen your own topic to write about, then you just need to concentrate on the topic that you've chosen, and that's a little bit easier to do. But most students are going to be asked to respond to an essay prompt. Again, one of the most common ones, and I think you'll find this on the college, the common application that students fill out, is to tell us about why you want to go to that school. So, and what you have to contribute to the campus life. When you are writing that essay, do not lose sight of that particular prompt, all right? Make sure that you are answering the question. Don't try to go too far afield. but it's also something that students in school with their English teachers will remember, that that's something that they always need to do. It's so writing the college application essay is not all that different from any other kind of essay that you're writing in high school. All right, let's go to slide number 5. All right. What you should also do when you're starting to write your essay is to remember to share something about yourself, details. Too often students might write about a particular event and then fail to talk about their role in that event. I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. A few years back, I had a student who wrote about her experience and her family's experience responding to the effects of Hurricane Katrina. Many of you may remember just how bad that storm was. People lost property. There was a great deal of flooding. This particular student, the flooding was so bad that she actually had to move into a neighbor's house who lived a little bit farther away. And while she did talk about Hurricane Katrina, and she did a good job of describing what she saw, she did not bring in enough of her own thoughts and feelings about the things that she was observing. And when I brought that to her attention and we worked through the essay, her voice then started to come through. We could hear exactly what she was thinking and what she was feeling. So always remember when you're writing an essay that even if you're describing an event, you do need to step in as a student and talk about your own thoughts and feelings. Truthfully, when you're able to do that, again, your reader will know you a lot better. They will see you as an individual and not just a collection of students who are applying to the school. Let's turn to slide 6. One of the things that I always talk to my students about when I assign them an essay to write, whether it is the college application essay or any essay in school, is to remember their audience. Now, this is important. You need to know who you're writing to, because that's going to help determine how you write your essay and the level of language that you use. Colleges, what I would advise for colleges is to err on the side of being conservative, of being cautious, all right? Informal language, as we know, is perfectly appropriate when you're speaking with your friends, or maybe even relaxed around the dinner table talking with your parents. But a college application is a little bit more formal. So try to avoid using humor that you may not be sure is appropriate for your particular kind of essay. Do not use slang. That's fine for sporting events or for informal gatherings, but in a college level essay, it's more appropriate to speak on a more formal level. Your audience in the college application essay, of course, are adults who are members of the admissions committee who are going to be reading this carefully and want to really know how you think and your level of vocabulary and the way that you are able to compose sentences. In other words, being able to know who it is that you're writing to. All right, let's go to slide number 7. One of the other pieces of advice I give you is to avoid tackling too much of your life. And what I mean by that is, even though this is a personal essay, you're not being required to tell your life story from birth to the present. It's much better to take a particular slice, a particular moment in your life, and just focus on that. I had said earlier that I think it's oftentimes students will find it easier and they'll have more success if they focus on a crisis in their life, a moment where they actually had a problem and they're honest. You know, if we have a problem, we usually are afraid, okay? Or we may not know what to do. And that's perfectly acceptable to include in a college essay. And then the rest of the essay would proceed to talk about how you attempted to solve those problems. It's even more interesting if you attempt to solve the problem and your attempt fails. See, many students think that you have to keep repeating and focusing on the positive. And yes, you want to do that, but failure is not always such a bad thing if you're able to talk about how you responded to it and what you did to actually turn that failure into a success. I just want to add one more point to that as well. it's not even really necessary for you to actually succeed at solving the problem by the time that you're finished writing the essay. More importantly, would be concluding your essay by saying what you learned from the experience and how that experience actually changed you. Think of it in every student who's ever read a work of fiction, and this is one of the reasons why I love teaching English, is that we read about people who have had experiences that we may not have had ourselves. And every good piece of literature, the reason why teachers teach these kinds of works of literature is because there's always going to be a change in the character. And you as a student are that character, and you are writing about your evolution, the way that you have changed as a result of your experience and what you have learned and what you've realized from it. If you can actually communicate that in a college application essay, you're going to have a very, very good and very interesting essay to read and to submit. All right. Just want to briefly talk about introductions. Think of an introduction to an essay as similar to a first impression. If you were going in for an interview, you would be dressed appropriately. You would already keep in mind a few ideas about what you want to talk about. That's going to create a strong and positive impression with your interviewer. But the same thing applies also in writing an essay. A good, strong introduction, and a consultant can show you how to do that. But if you don't choose a consultant, certainly go to your English teacher, go to your history teacher, any class that requires you to write, go to a guidance counselor, all right? They will be able to give you some help on how to write a very strong introduction. But your goal with an introduction, of course, is to grab the reader's attention and make them want to continue to read. Now, that's a skill, and it can be taught and it can be shown. Again, whether you choose a consultant or whether you go to your English teacher for help with an introduction is entirely up to you, but it is something that I do stress its importance in the essay. If we can go to slide 11, be specific. I want to talk a little bit about specifics. Whenever you write an essay, whenever a student writes an essay, they should constantly be thinking that if they're going to introduce an example, for instance, they should explain why that example is important. Always ask yourself the question, why? Why am I including that? And what do I want my reader to realize about me if I include that particular piece of information? All right, let's go to slide 15, getting feedback. So one of the other things I want to stress here is that you are not really writing your college application alone, all right? Of course, it is your responsibility, but you will find it much easier if you have somebody else that you can work with who will be able to give you feedback on your writing. I recommend going to your English teacher or your history teacher or a guidance counselor, or visiting a company that has consultants that can actually help prepare you for these kinds of essays. But feedback, no matter who you go to, is extremely important. The person that you talk to and that you trust will be able to tell you whether or not your language is at the appropriate level. That person should be able to tell you whether the topic is also appropriate. If you are a naturally funny person and you have a great sense of humor, they'll also be able to tell you whether or not that's coming through, and more importantly, that it is acceptable and not inappropriate. So I encourage you to get feedback on your essays. The other thing, though, that I want to caution you about is to choose 1 or 2 people. You don't need to get too many more people involved in reading and giving you feedback. And I'll tell you why. If you have 3 or 4 or 5 people who are giving you feedback, you may tend to get confused. You may not know how to weigh their information to make the changes to improve it. So try to just choose who you talk to about improving your essay. Choose that person carefully. Let's go to slide 17. There seems to be pressure with many students to make themselves different from everybody else. All you need to do is be yourself, all right? That's all you can be. And that's all the colleges really want to see. And have confidence that who you are is good enough, because that is going to be the most honest way to approach your essays. A couple of more things I just want to say before I wrap this up. After you have outlined your essay, after you have written your essay, after you have sought feedback from teachers, you want to then proofread your essay to make sure that it's free of errors in grammar, spelling, punctuation, and even facts. Facts are extremely important to get right. But I also want to tell you that I don't want you to feel that you have to write a masterpiece. All right, it's more important to write a more honest essay than it is to write a perfect essay. A perfect essay in any event is always elusive, even for professional writers. So take that pressure off of your shoulders and just be concerned about making sure that your thoughts, your feelings, and your honesty comes through in the essay. When I mentioned proofreading, yes, you want to have a clean essay. But honestly, if you make 1 or 2 spelling errors or 1 or 2 punctuation errors, the colleges are not going to hold that against you. In fact, I have recently read an article in the New York Times that confirms what I'm telling you. That in this article, they actually interviewed college admissions officers who said that a perfectly polished essay suggests that the writer did not write his own essay, that he may have given it to a parent to look for. And that's something that they that's something that they actually do not encourage. So again, that should take some pressure off. And I know there's going to be a lot of pressure when it comes time to writing the essays. I want to remind you that there are certain ways to take that pressure off by just simply allowing yourself to be. I'm running out of time at this point, but I'd like to thank you all for listening to me. And if you have any questions, the last slide provides us with the name of the school where I teach, Ivy Road Prep. There should be a phone number and an email address. And if you are able to take your phone and take a snapshot of the screen that shows our name, our telephone number, and our email, you should feel free to call the school, and we'll be happy to talk to you about how to write the college application, how to fill out a college application, and any of the other things that Ivy Road Prep provides students so that they can succeed in their college application process. So I think that's all that I'm going to say for now, and I look forward to answering your questions during the Q&A. Thank you so much for listening to me.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. See you back in the Q&A section. 谢谢我们的 Peter 老师给我们的所有的这些很好的建议哈，我相信非常的落到实处。如果你真的仔细听了，真的去做，一定是有帮助的。我们将在15分钟的 Q&A 的环节再一次和 Peter 老师连线。好，那在这里呢，也想跟我们所有的观众朋友说一下哈，我们这是一个线上的网络平台，那希望大家在留言的时候呢，能对于自己的言论稍微的审慎一点，最好呢是关于咱们本次活动，尤其是关于教育方向的一些问题，再做留言。谢谢您的配合。So a little bit reminder, I understand that everybody want to be relevant. So please, if you want to leave like comments or questions, please make sure it's relevant to the topic of this very event. We're focusing on education and get you better education down the road. All right, thank you very much for your cooperation. Now next, let's move on to the 4th lecturer for today. Let's welcome Miss Anna Bogiel。那么我们要请上的是我们今天的第4位演讲的嘉宾了，也是我们很熟悉的安娜女士。曾经呢，她就在我们的麦当劳教育博览会上露过面，和大家有过交流。All right, to introduce her a little bit, she's going to share her insight on SAT and ACT test changes. And she was an admission interviewer at Yale University for 8 years. And she's the president of American Education Experts. 那么今天为大家请到的安娜女士呢，如果您还有印象的话，她曾经在耶鲁大学担任了8年的面试招生官，可谓是非常的资深。而且呢，她现在也是美国教育专家团的主席，所以接下来让我们与她来连线。All right, hello, Miss Anna, are you there?
Hi, Tata. How are you?
I'm doing
Mrs.
great.
Lang.
Sharp today.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
All right,
Yep.
the screen is yours.
Okay, let's get this to work. Thank you. Thanks for having me. And yes, let's go right into it because the FT and the ACT is causing a lot of confusion. Why is this not working? Yes, there we are. Good, thank you. So let's hope that it continues to work and we can have this conversation because it's important. Overall, most kids at this point say that they're not going to take the FT, they're not going to take the ACT because they don't have to. And isn't that the most wonderful news in the world? And I wish I could say, yes, it is, but it isn't, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, too. If you were from some of these states, for example, if you had to go, because you live there, and you had to take the SAT in Alabama, in Colorado, in Missouri, in Nebraska, and Utah, there's all sorts of states. I would say, no, you don't need to take it because it's really too dangerous. But we are in great shape over here in the NYU area. And more importantly, I've spoken to the people at SATs that provide them and also the ACT people. I've actually talked to them and they're working really hard to make this very safe. So since so many students are going to be taking it, even though it is optional, I still feel now more than ever you should take the SAT or the ACT. Let me show you slide number 2, skip number 1. Slide number 2, you can see all these incredible schools that say it's optional. And again, it's really not if you're from this area because you have the safety to go do it. And we now have the ACT and the SAT organized enough. We're going to show you the dates that they're going to have them. And all of this wasn't even available 1 month ago. I mean, it's amazing how things have improved in our area. And because it's our area, we really ought to go. The colleges are going to look, if you're from this area, why you didn't take those exams. Okay, so the big question is, let's look at the next thing, which is, let's take the SAT, but how, if you should take it or not. The SAT can compare with the ACT, and I'm going to try to set that up a little bit for you. I'm going to tell you all the things that are very legitimately SAT qualities. If you need extra time to check your work, you need the SAT. It has a little bit more time. If you have a great vocabulary, the SAT, they require it a little bit more. They used to require it a whole lot more, and you really had to spend a long time learning many language skills, SAT skills, vocabulary skills. But now they are no longer doing that. So, but still, it is greater vocabulary than the ACT. So stay with the SAT. If you have math formula in your head, you will do fine with the SAT. If science is difficult for you, now see, for some person, that's absolutely enough for them to say, well, I'm not going to take the SAT. It's not that way. There's a lot of science throughout the whole SAT, but it's not going to be terribly difficult. It's not going to be harder than what you've experienced in the classrooms that you've been at, where you've been studying the science. They're not trying to make it a confusion for you. And then for the SAT, if you're better at algebra than you are at geometry and trigonometry, then the SAT might be a little bit easier for you because the algebra is a little bit, I think they said 12% more dominant. Okay, let's look at the ACT. All of this can be looked at more intensely if you're person to person, but at the moment, let me just get the overview for you. If you're going to take the ACT, you are able to trust your feelings. Now, a lot of students can do this. They just feel like, well, I just really think that's a better idea, a better response. then that's the ACT for you. You like using the calculator at math. Yeah. If you're comfortable with your calculator, the ACT is there for you. Your ACT is also if you are great at science. Well, I've had students disagree with me on this because they've come back and said, it really isn't the kind of science that's that hard. So saying that I'm great at it is hardly relevant. You are better at geometry and trigonometry than algebra. That's the other way around than we had at the SAT. So with the ACT, if you are better at geometry and trigonometry than algebra. So that's something to know for yourself. And then in ACT, if you can retake the individual sections, they've just done this for starting sophomore, starting September. Yeah, the September year is the beginning where they're going to try to give everyone a permission, possibility of taking apart a section of it again. So that might be a consideration. If your grade was not quite as high as you wanted to be and it was just one section that gave you a hard time, then study that section, take it again. That's what they're trying to make possible for you. Let's look at, I've really been bad at this. Can we go now to the SAT dates? Those are important. I don't know, because I can't see what you're showing, so I have no idea. The slide, can you show me the slide, or someone the slide for the SAT dates, please? They're August 29th, September 26th, October 3rd, November 7th, and December 5th. Okay. And I didn't have them even for the ACTs yet, but I do now, so I'm going to read them to you just in person. They have September 12, 13, 19, and October 10, 17, 24, 25, and they're begging you, if you're going to do the ACT, to go to www.act.org, and they will have more tests literally by the day. They're trying to figure out how to give you more tests week by week. I really feel that this is an important decision. A lot of kids are so happy not to do it and think that because it's optional, they're just not going to. But I'm afraid that will backfire. I've already talked to the friends I do know in the various schools, and they're saying for the safe schools, safe areas, they're expecting the kids to go and take the SAT or the ACT. Okay, thank you for my screen showers, my slides. I'm sorry I didn't keep them in touch. I hope you saw them pretty well. And let's go on to quickly. We don't have a lot of, I think that they asked me quickly, how do colleges pick their students? Over the years, I've gotten kind of a feel for that. First of all, you're never going to get away with lousy GPAs. Bad grades, it's bad grades. That means what it means. So I really suggest that everybody work hard and try to get the best grades they can. This is part of the way to do it. It's just necessary. They're going to probably always have SATs and SATs, but they will change. I'm sure they will change the types. They're always going to have SAT2 subject tests. We know that because it's the opportune time for the student to pick their own test. That's what's interesting to them, that subject. So, you know, it's an opportunity for them to get to know those students through what they picked. Then the teacher recommendation. This is really important. People forget this. Those two recommendations that come from the primary teachers, those primary teachers have got to know you. I take this very seriously because some of my students, they just say, well, the teacher doesn't know me well enough. That is your fault, not theirs. So that means you have to go and literally ask them for a cup of coffee in the school if possible, or go and have a conversation with them where they meet up with their students on a basis that you can do it frequently and they can get to know your interests and everything that you are doing, that you do during the summers. so that your teacher has something to say. So they say it well, hopefully, because they get to know you that way. All right, then the next thing is the extracurricular activities. Okay, this is important right now, particularly now, because everybody's trying to say, well, I had nothing to do. I had to stay home, and there's nothing to do, so I had no extracurricular activity. Wrong. You still have a little time, and the summer is not over. Here are some of the things that some of my students have been doing, and you should think about doing this. There's online language. If you're going to take a language, get better at it online. Online art history, become a historian, learn more about history and art. There's a study, the music, there's a whole music division of the online. You can go find at the Metropolitan Opera, which would usually cost you maybe $200-300 per show. They're showing it for free. I mean, seriously, if you want some interest in something different. If you are an artist yourself, or if you're a musician yourself, you should be practicing and getting your YouTube for the music lined up so that you can send a link to the various old fake persons' homes. Not saying that right, but where they would enjoy the music much. It would, make them happy to hear it. It doesn't have to be perfect for them. And yet you can also tell the schools, colleges, that you have done something worthwhile during this pandemic. So it's important that you think about how could you help other people if you already know how to perform and you already know how to do art. Those are two things that are available for people who need some uplift. I have something very important called the HUD page. The HUD page is where you develop your own ability to speak, know, and think, and write your own thoughts to people who will then also have similar ideas or disagreements. And so you can write about food safety, you can write about history history of performance art, history of business, talk about religion or philosophy, literature, education, science, sculpture. That's just a few. There's so many more. So this gives you a chance to start becoming articulate and opinionated and an individual. And so I'm suggesting this HUD page is something you do and then speak about it, write about it for colleges to see. When you have 10 possible activities that you've done, one of them that's very legitimate. And again, it doesn't mean going out and being not safe. It means staying home and being safe, but you're doing something intellectually very stimulating. Okay, now we've gotten to the extracurriculars. This is all part of my what I call pizza pie, how to get into college. Number 6, essays. Yes, let's do one. I found one because I thought it was so interesting. I know absolutely everybody wants to go to Yale. Since I went, I'm very proud of that and I'm very happy about that. But it's hard to get into because there are so many people in this area that want to go to Yale. So I'm going to write something here. It's the Yale Short Takes. What is the best piece of advice you have received in the last years? While walking in the street, my dad started dancing to music he heard. When I begged him to stop, he said, "The whole world's dancing, honey. You've got to join in sometime." I think that's just a fascinating response. We get to know her relationship with her father and that she was embarrassed, which is absolutely normal, but that she also picked this as the best advice. And so we understand that the whole world is dancing and you've got to join in is the advice that she's taking to heart. So in a few tiny little words, she's giving us so much information about who she is now and how she's trying to be exceptional, to dance, to be different. I think it's wonderful. The other thing was that from Yale, and what do you wish you were better at doing or being? And I have a response. I wish I were better at saying sorry. Sometimes I say it too often, and others times not enough. Striking the right balance is no easy feat, but is incredibly important. Now, I think that Yale loves thoughtful kids. You have to be thoughtful because it's not all about the grades and it's not all about taking SATs. It's about who you are. And so when you say, write a response that's literally a few words long, and yet you say something like this, it gives them a real sense that, yes, it is hard to say I'm sorry. Oftentimes we just rather not do it. And two, we can sometimes say it too much and it drives somebody crazy. So she's saying all of these things and ends it with, it is incredibly important. What would this world really be like if we could all learn to say, I'm sorry? Much better. So I want to give you this. I have other things, but we have time. So the supplemental essay is also important. That's what they tell you. Like NYU always says, what are you wanting to come? Why are you wanting to come here? This is NYU. Almost everybody wants to have NYU at some point on their, it's not maybe their reach school, but it, or it can be, that's fine too. But it's a great school in any case. And so this is the question, why do you want to come here? So one of the worst thing you can do is basically fill in time without saying anything. To say something, you have, why are you going to the NYU? Why are you going to any college? You are going there for its classes, for its professors. That's going there. You're not going there because it looks nice or because it is, or it's because there are specific things that excite you about that place. And you need to tell us, or them, what it is. And I think that's part of the research and part of, going abroad, which eventually will become feasible again. That is part of the understanding what makes you a significant person for them to take seriously, is how you take a simple question, why do you want to come here? And that seems very basic. And you fill that up with such insight into what school is about and what aspects of it mean something to you that have to take you because they are convinced it is the right place for you. So that's one of my things. Okay, then finally we get to, yes, number 8. We've done a pizza pie. Notice I like pizza, so here we are, pizza pie, all the various parts. The edge of the edge, what can you do to impress or surprise them? If you do anything during the summer and write about it, a little bit about that, that is part of the edge. You've done something unusual. It is easy to stay home and do nothing. If you have the arts on your side, so you can do painting, anything like that, and you show it, that's good. Music, if you can play piano and anything, and show that to them, impressed. Also your language. Many of your students here are bilingual. Not something to take for granted. Being bilingual is cool. So you have something special. It doesn't feel like it in this neighborhood. Everybody speaks 2 languages at least, but that's not the way the United States is. And so language is good. But then we get to your interview. Yes, that is really important. That's what I love to talk about because I'm not going to talk about too much today. We really just don't have time. But let's just say you're super, super shy. And what are you going to do in an interview? You just can barely talk. Here's the thing. You go in and you stay a quiet, calm person, but you're prepared with questions to the interviewer. When did they go to that school? What was their major? What did they really enjoy taking other than their major in that school? What were some of their extra interests in that school? You start having a conversation with someone who understands very quickly that you yourself are shy. But because of the questions, they understand also your interests and that you are trying. And that really speaks a lot. It speaks volumes. So I suggest you take an interview even if you are shy. And if you're outgoing and talkative, then get an interview where you have the opportunity, even if the person asking you is not asking great questions. Say to yourself, this is my opportunity, maybe my only opportunity to impress this school. I want them to know me. And so you tell them about what you've done this summer, whether he or she asked you at all. Just because it was so exciting, I have to tell you about what we did this summer online. It has to be this year, it's online. But still, find a way to create some conversation with excitement in it. And I think that you will find that most people who give these interviews are receptive to the student and they're being nervous. They understand that. And so be ready with some questions for them. That's expected in any case. And try to make them questions that mean something to you. You know, did you find that they had too much studies? You know, how much were your studies? Were they just the end? Let's see, I wrote this. I like this idea. Oh, yes. Did they just have finals? Did they have midterms and finals? Or, like some classes, small frequent tests and not a midterm and not a final? There are lots of ways that you can get information that helps you. Some people do great in classes with huge amounts of people in it. I mean, Yale, I remember going into a class that had over 400 kids in it. And I thought, oh my God, that's a lot of people. They worked it out. Then I think my time is actually up. I know this is a little insane to get information to you so quickly. However, would you have questions or interests? You are welcome to ask me during the questions and answers. And I want to thank very much McDonald's, who do this every year. I've done it several times with McDonald's, and I thank them for doing this. And World Journal, they're just terrific. I really appreciate their help making all this possible. And if you have also questions about some of the things I'm saying, you can go to www.aeeny.com. Oh, and we have someone who's speaking Chinese. That's my partner. So you can call 917-373-0907 and speak Chinese if you prefer. Thank you very much. I hope that there's one there if I end. Yes?
Hi! Of course, I'm always here. And now, yes, and now we would like to have all three lecturers come to the Q&A section. Finally, we got 15 minutes for the Q&As, and I've got the questions already. And the first one, all right, I think I'll direct the first one to Mr. Yan because I want to give Miss Anna some time to rest. All right. 好，第一个问题呢，我们想要问的是严校长哈。严校长，我们有学生问到说，如何正确的定位自己在大学要申请的这些大学当中的这个清单，就谁排在前面比较好，谁排在后面比较好，我们怎么样去衡量，怎么样去排是更理性的？
OK， 首先的这个问题，首先问的非常的好，因为其实有很多的学生在就是做自己的这个大学的名单的时候，其实特别的迷茫，就是说。我觉得几个因素吧。首先就是说，我觉得对很多家长来讲，可能这个 financial aid 就金钱的部分是比较重要的。还有一个就是说，你也不希望说，自己申请一个学校是基本上没有机会的。所以呢，一般来讲，我们作为就是把你的 ED 和 ED2 的话，通常都是 ED1， 我们叫做公 ，ED2 守的意思就是说。ED1 的时候，你可以冲一些跟你的实际的范围可能稍微有点远的比如说你一般大概是能够申请到差不多卡内基梅隆、南加大这个级别的，你可以申请一下，比如说常春藤的，比如说像 Cornell 或者是 Brown。那么首的话呢，可能就是 ED2 的时候，比如说你可以选择这个。差不多在 NYU 这个级别的如果 ED1 没进，然后 EA 呢也做的不是，就是说结果也不是很好的时候，你就可以守一点。但是我这边非常推荐大家，就是说能够申请所有的有 EA 的学校都去申请，比如说像乔治亚理工啊、北卡还有像密西根安娜堡这些学校，其实都是有很不错的 这样的就是各科其实都很好，就是说特别是理工科吧。所以呢，如果你已经进了一些 EA 的话，你在正常申请的时候，其实就不要申请太多的保底的学校。那首先有一些学校，特别是在纽约的家长，我特别推荐你们，就是说，如果学生的成绩是还可以的话呢，他不应该考虑外州的公立学校，应该就是考虑，就是说，如果 Financial Aid 对你来讲是比较重要的一个部分的话，应该申请的是所有的私立学校以及本州的公立学校作为保底学校，因为你不希望说去一个很一般的私立学校，但是要花上5万6万。我们知道，因为是处于外州学生的话，其实你是要支付这个所有的费用的啊，就是说按照国际生和这个外州生的话，其实它的学费是一样的。比如说你去加州的比如说伯克利当然是不是伯克利，可能有些人会愿意花这个钱去，但比如说如果你是去加州的戴维斯好了，其实它没有比纽约州的比如说宾汉姆顿好多少，但是你要花上5倍的钱去，所以我就觉得不是很值得了。所以在申请的时候的话呢，最好就是说首先对自己要有一个很明确的一个评估，就是说我通常建议学生的话，如果申请20所学校好了，通常是12所就是冲刺的学校，然后呢大概是6所是他大概能力范围内的，比如我们叫 target school， 然后呢保底的学校呢可以比如说加上什么 Stony Brook 或者是 Binghamton 作为他的保底学校。那这样子的话，如果他进不了好的私立学校的话，那他最起码在这个就比较划算，可能去实习啊或者 Binghamton。那我今年也有案子是学生第1年因为是自己 DIY 的，他自己做的，然后呢在 Stevenson 的一个学生他的 GPA 其实都不错，有95分，然后呢这个 SAT 的话也是超过1500分，但是呢很遗憾的是他没有进任何好的学校，他后来只去了这个实习大学。那去完实习大学，我们第1年就做转学申请，然后他后期是进了哥大、康奈尔和这个艾默里这3所这个前20的学校，以及一个特殊的一个项目就是联读的，就是 Sophie Davis， 也是今年唯一一位这个转学进 Sophie Davis 的学生。所以呢，就是说外州的公立学校我一般不是特别推荐，然后呢比例的话应该是就是梦想学校要多一点，因为你中了1所2所其实就够了，对吧？那么所以呢，但不是每个学校都可以这样子申请，比如说像 Hunter 的话它是只能8所私立学校，所以就不能够申请这么多。但是大部分的学校的话，你其实是没有什么限制的。那我会建议就是冲刺的学校多一点，保底的呢尽量的是州内，比如说外州的尽量少申请一点，比如说宾州州立啊或者俄亥俄州立这些学校的话，应该是不会去的，因为它没有比我们州内的宾汉顿或 Stony Brook 好很多。对。
好的，谢谢。作为一个哥大的毕业生，我想我们哥伦比亚大学也是张开双手欢迎我们镜头前的每一位，希望每一个小朋友都能够像咱们的严校长说的，做好自己的分层的梯队哈。第1梯队的常青藤学校也不是一定不可以的，冲一冲说不定也是很有机会的。好，那么我们第2个问题 ，Question number 2 ，Let's redirect that to Mr. Peter. Mr. Peter, you're there? Hear the question. All right. So what's the difference between the college application essay and the SAT essay?
That's a very good question. It's probably easiest to remember the difference that the college application essay is a personal essay that talks about one aspect of the student's life. The SAT essay, however, is a formal test that usually takes place after the SAT, the regular SAT is complete. The SAT essay is an optional essay, though most schools strongly suggest that students sit for that 50-minute exam. And that essay primarily focuses on a passage. It's an argumentative essay in which the student is asked to read the passage for the main ideas. Just at the same time, they also need to talk about how those ideas are expressed. So it is an analytical essay in response to a persuasive essay. Long and the short of it is that the SAT essay is a formal test, and the college application essay is part of the college application process, and it's very much a personal essay. Thank you for that question.
All right, thank you. So if I like sports, we can talk about in the college application essay, but probably not in the SAT essay. I think that's what you're trying to mean.
A great example of why the college application essay is personal. You would talk about sports, or if you were into other extracurricular activities, even including some mention of a job that you may have held during a vacation or after school. But as long as it's personal and it's relevant to you, the college application essay, that's what ties to the college application essay.
I'll come back to you, yes. All right. How? Question number 3. Miss Anna, I believe you are energetic again. All right, here's your question. Because like I mentioned, I'm a graduate from Columbia University. When I think back for my interview with alumni, I was a little bit nervous. Whereas you worked 8 years as the former interview officer for Yale, what's your suggestion for like how to prepare us for the interview? Like any skills we want to acquire?
Yes, there are lots of skills. But before I say that, I looked up something a long time ago, and I want to really give it to everybody who's still around. And that's simply that the best student loans that I researched at the moment are from Sallie Mae, Discover, and Earnest. And I looked them all up. They're really good for students at the moment, and they're making it possible for kids to go to college that might otherwise not. Now, what to get ready for yes, you have to practice. It's just very hard on students. The first thing to do is practice alone and remember that your parents cannot hear you. Just make sure you feel really safe and you're not hemmed in any way. And AEE, our company, we actually have practice tests and practice opportunities of how to talk on the phone, how to talk via visible Zoom or something like that, or how to go in person, which used to be, of course, what everyone wanted to do most. And by practicing, it becomes less fearful. And you also have to know, well, what am I practicing? What is your mind filling up with? How can you prepare? What are they going to ask you? And then we have a list of things they could ask you. And then you say to yourself, okay, I can research this. What did I do, in high school that was great? What that made me so happy? I have to be prepared with that. And you make it more of a sort of a looking at with facts, so that when the time comes, you can become more relaxed because you have more facts to give the person. The student has more facts to give to the viewer. So that helps a lot.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask a follow-up question. Do you think the interviews that are being held by Ivy League schools are necessarily harder than other schools?
It depends very much on the interviewer. I now know several of them over the years, and some of them are outrageously hard, and it seems really wrong to me to ask questions like that. They try to blend you with somebody who's also in the science area that you're interested in. And what they're hoping for is that you'll have a science 30 minutes of discussion of the science. And that sometimes happens if you're really smart, outgoing, and comfortable with that. But a lot of people aren't really willing to suddenly think about their interest in science and this particular person. And so they kind of, it is hard for them. That's when I suggest, if you are not dominating the relationship, if you're not dominating it, it's your turn to ask the questions. So it sounds like they should be, it's your turn to say, oh, do tell me what you liked best while you were at this college. What did you love doing here? Then they start to be a little bit sympathetic to the situation and start to talk themselves about what was important to them.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. Thank you for that answer.
Yep. Let's go back to Mr. Yan. 回到我们的严校长哈，严校长，今年有一个非常大的变化，就是咱们的很多的学校的校访，像您讲到的，不能实地的去进行了，转到了网上。那么网上的这个校访，怎么样才能够做得真正的有效，而不是大而化之的，浏览一下，什么也没看见，什么也没学到，怎么来做这个 online 的 school visit？
这个问题问的也是非常的专业，因为今年的确就是很多的这个效仿的话都变成是 virtual tour，所以我个人觉得，其实学生要在找的话呢，要找自己的兴趣，就是说，因为它是一个我们叫做 two-way matching process，就是他为什么，就是你为什么是一个好的一个 fit， 那同时的话呢，就为什么你什么样的贡献你是可以做的，所以我一般会让学生先去了解这个学校的特色，把它做成 A、B、C、D、E， 那通过这个 virtual tour 的话就可以做到他喜欢这里的1、2、3、4、5、6点，然后同时再和自己目前有的兴趣爱好做一个连接，这样的话就可以回答这种为什么要申请这个学校。
好的，所以就是自己在去看之前，心中要有所准备，大概要看到一些自己想要看的点，而不是大而化之的一来而过。
好的。All right, next question.
Let's come back to Mr. Peter. All right, another question about the paper, like for the common application paper, and the hardest part is like answer the question, why this school? Like, why do you want to apply for our school? How do we answer that question efficiently?
Well, I apologize. There was a break in the technology. Would you mind repeating that question one more time?
Yes, absolutely. For the common application paper, all right, for the common application paper is easy. Somebody, like everybody sort of get it, right? But for the paper to answer the question why you choose our school, it's very hard for some of the students. So how can we answer that question efficiently?
Well, it helps to do a little research into the school. I mean, in a sense, that's a homework assignment that students are given. And it's actually a really good skill because that's what you're going to be doing your entire life. Students will be doing for their entire life. Whether they're applying for school or they're applying for a loan, it's always helpful to do some research in advance. So what the students should do is go online, ideally, first and foremost, go online because it's the easiest thing to do, and read about the school, read about the departments, see if they recognize any of the professors' names. It's not necessary to actually be familiar with the professors, but it's a big world out there, and some students may actually know some of the professors who are teaching there. The next piece of advice would be to actually visit the campus if that's at all possible, and talk to students, talk to the person who leads the tours, and find out about what the school has to offer. And I would say that's probably the second piece of research. And then perhaps talk to others who maybe have graduated from the school to find out what their experience was like. In the process of gathering that information, the students then can talk about why particularly they want to go to that school. I had heard earlier some mention of talking about the classes and the professors in particular. I think a student who actually is familiar with, who knows what they want to major in and knows the kind of professors that are teaching there has a lot that they can talk about, and it will come across as being informed. And again, if the student comes across as being informed, they do their homework, they know something about the school, that's going to be a very easy way to answer that kind of question. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, thank you. I think so. All right. Yeah, thank you. Do we have time for one more? No? Aw, but don't worry about it because we actually collect all the questions and we are sorting them out and we will answer them probably in our next online education workshop. Yes, you hear me right. We will have a next online education workshop in this fall. 好，如果您的问题呢，不好意思没有被回答到，不用担心，后台的所有的问题呢，我的同事们都已经摘录下来了，我们将会对他们进行分类整理，相信呢，在下一次我们的线上教育博览会的时候，我们会尽量给到您解答。听得没错，我们还有下一次的线上教育博览会将会在秋季举行。那具体的信息呢，希望大家能够关注世界日报的官方的信息公布渠道，包括我们的 channel， 还有我们的报纸渠道，希望大家能够关注我们。All right, it's the time for the final round of the sweepstakes. All right. Actually, we have like one AirPods that haven't been actually claimed by anyone, right? All right, I got it. So my colleagues are telling me, before we move on to the sweepstakes, let's just say goodbye to our 3 lecturers first, because they've staying there for a long time. So let's say thank you and bye, Mr. Yan. Bye, Miss Wompstacker. And also bye, Miss Anna. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Great job. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Unless you get registered for the sweepstakes too. Otherwise, don't stay. I'm kidding. 好，那么接下来呢，到我们的抽奖环节了，这是我们的最后一轮的抽奖哈。刚才提到了我们的工作人员说呢，有一个 AirPod 在刚才呢没有观众打进电话，所以呢，我们将抽取的是一对 AirPod 和一只 iPad。All right, so there was one AirPods that haven't been claimed by anyone, so we'll still draw that. And afterwards, we're going to draw that iPad you want. All right, here's the box. All right, so please check your order number. Come on, check your order number. That's very important. 好，这个 order number 在哪里呢？在您的 email 当中。It's in your confirmation email from Eventbrite. All right. I think this one is for the AirPod. Agree? For the AirPods. Okay. Ooh. All right, here we go. 1, 3, 8, 9, 7, 5, 6, 6, 0, 8. 1, 3, 8, 9, 7, 5, 6, 6, 0, 8. All right, so our colleagues is going to type it on the screen. 好，我们的工作人员呢会把这个号码打出来，放在我们屏幕上方。您可以慢慢的来核对，每一个数字都请您核对清楚。如果这真的是您的号码的话，赶快拿起手中的手机拨打我们的电话。So if this is your number, please don't hesitate. Grab your cell phone, call us. All right, and then you can call the number on the screen. It's 718-746-8889. Extension 6213. Thank you so much. Alrighty. 加油哦! Good luck, everybody. Alright, and we have iPad to give out too. 我们还有一只 iPad 要给大家送出。I'll make sure I go to the bottom, scoop up. Alrighty. Oh, it's actually 2. I'll just, okay. Ta-da! It's 14049288502 14049285506。好，相信我们的工作人员已经打到了我们屏幕的上方。那么这一张呢是给我们的 iPad 的获得者的。这一张奖券哈是我们获得 iPad 的幸运观众的号码。14049285506。好，因为我是 read backwards, so maybe I maybe mispronounced. OK， 好。那如果这是您的号码，这可是一台 iPad 哦，赶快打进电话。Please call us within the next 10 minutes. 一定要在接下来的10分钟之内打给我们。好，那么我们还有100张的麦当劳的现金卡要给大家抽出。那这100张的呢，就不是我一个一个在这儿抽了，我们后台的工作人员会帮我们一起来抽取，一起来整理。然后呢，稍后我们也会公布在我们的大屏幕上。但是这个呢，需要一点点的时间，因为100个号码后台在不断的在整理他们现在忙得热火朝天，所以呢，请您稍安勿躁。So we still have 100 McDonald's cash card to give out, and my colleagues are actually writing them down, typing them on the screen. So let's give them a little bit of time. 好，那么同样呢，我们获得了100张幸运卡的观众朋友，您就不用打电话了哈，不能叫同样，您不用打电话，我们会主动的来联系您。我们会主动的联系您。获得我们100张麦当劳幸运卡的观众朋友们，我们问一下，准备好了吗？我们准备好公布100位了吗？好的 ，3, 2, 1， ta-da！ 我们要公布在我们的屏幕上，100位幸运观众，恭喜你们！你们不用做任何的事情，我们后台的工作人员稍后会联系您，因为呢，您在 Eventbrite 注册的时候已经留下了您的手机和您的邮箱地址，我们会有工作人员通过这2种方式来联系您，核对您的身份。So if you got the McDonald's cash card, don't worry, you don't need to do anything. So our call is going to reach out to you. They're going to call you, probably emailing you, and make sure you get that award. 好的，那么在这里呢，也要为大家公布一个好消息。刚刚提到了，我们会有第2场的秋季的教育博览会，我们也将邀请更多的业界专家，就不同的主题为您咨询，并且呢答疑解惑。那么在这里呢，也提醒大家一下，我们这一场的直播的视频呢，会全程的放在世界日报的官方 YouTube 的频道上。那么大家呢，可以随时的回看或者转发，也请大家不要忘记订阅我们的频道，点一下 subscribe， 点一下 subscribe 就能看到更多的信息的 update， 信息的更新。Alright, so yes, we do have that second education workshop online version going up, but don't forget to subscribe to our official channel first. Please click that little button over there, subscribe to the official channel of World Journal. We will provide you with the most updated information. All right, the second online education workshop will be in fall, so check it out later. 好，那么在这里呢，我们再一次恭喜以上的100位的获奖者。Again, congratulations to that 100 winners out there. To conclude today's McDonald's online education workshop, we would like to thank our title sponsor, McDonald's, one more time. Thank you so much for the support. 好，那么在我们今天活动的最后呢，要再一次感谢我们的冠名赞助商麦当劳。正是因为他们长期以来的支持，我们才能够一次又一次的与大家相见，为大家提供最好、最新鲜的教育资讯。So, and also we want to say thank you to all the lecturers, to our team, and also to our viewers out there. Thank you so much. 感谢我们所有的演讲嘉宾，感谢我们现场忙碌了1天的工作人员，还有再一次感谢我们镜头那一端、屏幕那一端的您，感谢我们所有的线上的观众朋友们。我们下一次再见啦 ！I'll see you next time. Bye. See you in the fall. 我们秋季再见。拜拜。